Hello friends, welcome to the part 2 of my series on the confusions around the significator Sublord and Rahu-Ketu in KP Astrology. Now if you made a generic search and happen to stumble upon this particular video, I would strongly recommend that you navigate to part 1 of the video, because this is a developing story about a new approach in Krishnamurti Paddhati. So unless you watch the part 1, you will have no clue what we would be discussing in this particular video. In part 1, I mentioned about one of the direct disciples of Professor Krishnamurti by the name K.M. Subramaniam, popularly called as Mohan in that book. And he proposed a series of new rules for working out the significator. So that is what we are going to discuss in this video. Now, in that particular book, he has not mentioned or given any name to this new method. So, but time and again, they have used the word sublord as the ultimate decider, or sublord as the boss, or sublord as the supremo. So, what I'm going to do is that I'm just going to call the new theory as the supremo theory. That just for the purpose of convenience and nothing else. And this is the example horoscope that we are going to use in this presentation. This is a Chelit chart or the cusp chart. And just remember this, that Rahu in this chart is in Sagittarius, so it represents Jupiter, and Ketu is in Gemini, so it represents Mercury. Now, if you look at the table of significators over here, you will find that I have added an additional column by the name of Star Lord of Sublord. Don't get mixed up with the sub-sublord. This is not a sub-sublord column. This is the Star Lord of Sublord. And in the new theory, the Supreme theory, this particular column has to be taken into account. Now, when you look at all these numbers over here, then this table of significators look a little intimidating. But after you have a handle on what I'm going to discuss in this video, the couple of new rules, they are very simple rules. And then you'll find that those are really simple, and you will not have any more intimidation by all these numbers. So let's get started. And now there are just two rules. So we are going to discuss these two rules. But those two rules are applied in all these four different levels. So I wanted to discuss all the four levels, but I don't think I'll have that kind of a time. And I don't want to rush into the things because we are discussing a new approach. So I thought I'll just go a little slowly over here, and so that you are able to grasp the principle. So hopefully I'll be able to discuss the level 1 and level 2, and how we are going to apply the supremo theory. Now, in the old rule, at level 1, bring your attention to level 1, this particular column. What we learned in the old rule and what we have been following most of the time was that a planet gives the result where it is placed, and also the house is owned by it. Now, before that, I just wanted to mention one more thing in the supremo or the new theory, that the signification of Rahu and Ketu, which we are used to finding out by in terms of looking at where Rahu and Ketu are placed in which sign, and then what kind of planets are aspecting them, and what kind of planets are conjoined with it. In the new supremo theory, these two things are not taken into consideration. So now the old rule said that a planet gives the result where it is placed, and also the house is owned by it. In other words, if you look at Venus, then it says Venus will give the result where it is placed, and also the house is owned by it. So where is Venus placed? Venus is in the 8th house. And what kind of house is Venus is owning this particular chart? The 3rd house and the seventh anyway, we've already discussed seventh. So following the old rule or the old method, we say that Venus at level 1 is going to indicate the third and the eighth house. But what is the deviation in the new rule? A new rule says a planet will not give any result if a star is occupied by other planet. Now this is something very important and that need to be understood at level 1. So instead of saying a planet, I will say Venus will not give any result if a star is occupied by other planets. So let's look at Venus. Now, is Venus star occupied by other planet? So let's look at the star lord column, and we find that sun is deposited in the star of Venus. So applying this particular rule, we say that Venus will not give any result. We just have to strike out anything that Venus was supposed to give. If Venus star is hijacked by or occupied by or some other planet is deposited in Venus star. Since Sun is already deposited in Venus star, so we have taken away these two significance which were promised according to the old rule. Now let's look at Ketu. Uh, all these numbers appear because of the sign that Ketu is occupying and also the planets that are aspecting Ketu or the Ketu's conjunction with other planets. But since all these two things are not taken, so we'll just focus on these two rules, these two significance of the Ketu being in a particular sign in the light of these new rules. So it says a planet will not give any result if star is occupied by other planet. Ketu will not give any result if its star is occupied by other planet. So let's see if Ketu's star is hijacked by other planet or not. So we find that Rahu has already hijacked Ketu's star. So what we are going to do is just we are going to remove all these signification that Ketu was apparently giving following the old method. So Ketu and Venus we have already dealt with. Now let's look at Sun. Let's look at any planet occupying Sun star. Ketu no, Venus no, Sun no, Moon no, Mars no, but we find Mercury is occupying Sun star. So according to this new supreme rule, a planet will not give or Sun will not give any result if a star is occupied by other planets. So Mercury is occupying Sun star. So let's strike out these things. Sun will not give the result of the 10th house, though it is placed in the 10th house, and according to the old method, it was supposed to give the result of the 10th house, but the new rule dismisses that particular rule. Now let's look at Moon. If you look at the list, then you look at Moon itself is occupying Moon star. This is typically called as a self significance in Krishnamurti's Paddhati. So since Moon is occupying its own star, so we say okay, Moon will give the result of uh, uh, where it is placed. Now, first thing is the moment we say that Moon is going to give the result, then it gets split into two parts. Moon is going to give the result of where it is placed, that is the first part. So Moon is placed in the third house. So Moon is going to give the result of the third house. And the second part of this new theory says that Moon might also give the result of the houses owned by it, provided those are vacant. So if you look at the other houses or the house owned by Moon, that's the sixth house. And the theory says provided those are vacant. So the sixth house is vacant. So we say okay, Moon is going to give the result of the 3 and 6 both. So we are going to retain this. And with Mars, we don't find any planet that is in the star of Mars or occupying the star of Mars or hijacking the star of Mars. So in that case, this particular rule becomes applicable. That Mars will give the result of its placement first. So where is Mars? Mars is in the 12th house. So 12th house result it will give. But what about the other houses? Mars is owning the second house and the ninth house. So in that case, we have to look at this particular rule that and ask that are those houses vacant or occupied, then we find that these two houses are vacant. So we are going to retain 2, 9 and 12. Let's look at Rahu, and let's look at any planet occupying Rahu's star, and we find that Ketu is occupying Rahu's star. So following the rule number 1, we strike out the significance of Ketu according to the, or that was laid down according to the old rule. Now let's look at Jupiter. Any planet occupying Jupiter star, we not only see that Jupiter is occupying Jupiter star, we see Saturn also occupying Jupiter star. So when it says that if a star is occupied, if the Jupiter star is hijacked by any other planet, so Saturn has hijacked Jupiter star. So now Jupiter is not going to give the result of these houses. And with Saturn, let's look at Saturn. We find that Venus is deposited in the star of Saturn. So Saturn will not give the result of these two houses. And with Mercury, now we don't find any planet deposited into Mercury's star. So then in that case, then first we have to look at the new Supremo rule and look at the placement of Mercury. Mercury is in the 11th house. So 11th house result it will give. Now let's focus on the houses owned by Mercury and find out whether those houses are vacant or are occupied. Now those houses are 4th, 5th and the 7th. Now if you look at 4th, 5th, they are all occupied. Ketu is in 4th and Jupiter is in 5th, and only the 7th house is vacant. So we will retain 11 because Mercury is placed over there, and then we will retain 7 and we will strike out the 4 and 5. So at level 1, the usual approach, the old method, had so much of significance for any given planet, but following the new approach, we see that there is a considerable reduction in the number of signification that a planet represents. So uh, that was the new supreme rule at level 1. Now let's talk about the level 2. Now the old rule for level 2 was a planet will give the result of its star lord placement and the house is owned by the star lord. Or in other words, Venus will give the result of its star lord placement. So what is the Venus star? Saturn. What is the Saturn's placement? 8th house. So Venus will give the result of the 8th house by virtue of being in Saturn star. And the house is owned by the star lord. So what are the houses owned by the star lord? Saturn. That are the 12th house, and since this is a cusp chart and the Aquarius has become an intercepted sign, so there's only one sign that appears in this chart. So in the old rule, the Venus was supposed to give the result of the 8th and also the 12th house. But what the new rule says, and if you look at the new rules, this is in two part. The part 1, this, and the part 1 of the new rule, the Supremo rule, and the part 1 are the same. So they hold good, whether it's the old rule or the new rule. The only difference is on the second part. The second part, according to the new Supremo theory, says that the a planet will give the result of its star lord, especially the houses, provided if they are vacant. So here we find that the 12th house is not vacant. Mars is already occupying that 12th house. So what we are going to do is we are going to remove 12 from here. So the Venus, according to the old theory, was supposed to give the result of 8 and 12, is now only giving the result of the 8th house. Sun is in Venus star. Where is Venus? Venus is in 8th. So 8th we will retain. What about the third house? Third house is occupied by moon. It is not a vacant house. So sun will now only give the result of 8th house on level 2. Moon. Moon is in moon star. Moon is in third house, so third house is fine. Sixth house is empty or vacant, unoccupied, so sixth house is also fine. Mars is in the star of Jupiter. So let's look at where Jupiter is. Jupiter is in the fifth house, so fifth is fine. And Jupiter is the owner of the first house. So the first house is vacant, the first house is also fine. Jupiter is the owner of the 10th house, but 10th house is not vacant. So we'll strike out the 10th house. And Jupiter also happens to be the owner of the 11th cusp. But since Mercury is there, so we have to strike out this also. Now let's look at Rahu. Rahu is in Ketu star. So where is Ketu? Ketu is in the fourth house. So fourth house we will keep. But what are the other houses owned by Ketu? In that case, we have to look at the, since Ketu is in Gemini, so Ketu is representing Mercury. So pretty much what Mercury is doing in this horoscope will be done by Ketu. So Mercury is in the 11th house, so 11th also we will keep. And the other houses of Mercury are 4, 5, and this particular house is vacant. So Rahu, by being in the star of Ketu, will give the result of where Ketu is, the fourth house. Some of these houses have come from aspect and conjunction, all that anyway we'll strike out. Fourth house is owned by Mercury, but still since Ketu is there, so we have to strike it out. Fifth is owned by Mercury, but Jupiter is there, so we have to strike it out. Seventh we will keep because this is a vacant house. And ninth might have come because of other reason. 10th we are going to strike out. 11 is where the Mercury is, so we are going to keep this. So now eventually Rahu is only giving the result of the, uh, I'm sorry, the fourth house we'll have to keep. Okay, I'm sorry about that. So it's going to give the result of the fourth house because Ketu is placed over there, and the seventh house because it is vacant and it is ruled by Mercury, and Ketu represents Mercury, and then the 11th house where the Mercury is. And now let's move on to Jupiter. Jupiter is in Jupiter star. So where is Jupiter is in fifth. So fifth house we'll keep. First house ruled by Jupiter is vacant. So first house we'll keep. 10th house is ruled by Jupiter, but it's occupied. So we are going to strike the 10th house. 11th house or the cusp ruled by Jupiter, but Mercury is there. So we are going to strike this also out. Saturn is in Jupiter star. So we have already seen what Jupiter will do. So we are just going to strike out these two houses. And Mercury is in the star of Sun. And Sun is in 10. And since this is a cusp chart and Leo is not appearing because of being an intercepted sign. So now if you, did I miss on anything? Okay, I think we have to look at Ketu into Rahu. Ketu in the Rahu star. So Rahu, where is Rahu? Rahu is in 10th. So 10 we will keep. And what Rahu represents? Rahu represents Jupiter. So Jupiter is in 5th. So, and these houses, other houses owned by Jupiter, like the 10th and the 11th, they are occupied. Ascendant is vacant. So what we are going to do is that we will keep the Rahu being in the 10th house. So 10th we will keep. And then first we will keep the first house, and the fifth we will keep because Jupiter is there, and rest of the houses we are going to omit. So fourth house might have come because of some other reason. Seventh also, eighth also will delete, and 10 also we will remove, 11 also we will remove. So eventually in terms of Ketu on level 2 we only get 1, 5, and the 12th also we'll have to remove. So only we get 1 and 5. that's pretty much what Jupiter represents, 1 5. So 1 5 is going to appear over here, and 4 I think we'll have to keep. Sorry, the where the Rahu is in the 10th. So 10th we'll have to keep. Sorry about that. 10th we'll have to keep because Ketu is in the Rahu star. So these are the two rules that I discussed for the level 1 and the level 2. Now, since the new Suprema theory uh, uh, recommends that we lay down the table for of signification for at 4 different levels, 1 2 and 3 and 4, but whatever rule are applicable at this particular point at the first level are also applicable at the third level, and whatever rules are applicable at level 2 are also applicable at level 4. Okay, so if you have understood the rule number 1 and 2 that I discussed and showed you, then you pretty much understood everything about this new Suprema theory. There only one difference is there, and that I want to show you what difference is there. When you are applying the rule 1, at that time you discuss about Venus. Okay, but when you are applying the rule 1 at this particular level, then you are not talking about Venus, then you are talking about Mercury. That is the only difference. When you look at this, if you look at the title of this particular column, I have deliberately made it at sublords, placement, and the ownership. So at this level, you have to not look at Venus, but you have to look at Mercury and then apply the rule number 1. So what was the rule number 1? The rule number 1 was that if there are stars in the Mercury's if there are planet in Mercury's star, which will happen because of rule number column number 4 over here. So that I'm going to discuss later. But right now I just want to give you a hint that this particular thing and the fourth column, which is the star lord of the sublord, they follow the same rules but with a slight little difference. So if you get a handle of the on the rule 1 and 2, uh, you will be pretty much able to apply the same rules over here and finally decide that what kind of signification the sublot shows at this particular level, and then the fourth level that I'm going to discuss in some other video, so that you get more time to gel with the rule number 1 and 2, and I can also have some more time to go slowly and discuss all these levels. So that's pretty much all in this new theory. It's very simple theory, not difficult, and I wanted to actually do a practical application in this video, but I thought that it might be like rushing into the thing. So that's all in this presentation. Leave your comments, and if you have any confusion, do mention that in your comments. Hopefully I'll be able to answer that. Thanks for watching.